long day, I got a lot to say. It feels like I'm carrying a 2-ton weight. I go to see a friend.
Hello, I'm Msgr Patrick Winslow.
And I am Father Matthew Kauth.
And we are speaking from the rooftop.
A podcast brought to you by 10 Books, in which we invite you to join our conversation out here in the open air,
where we look out upon the world around us from the rooftop of the church and share with you what we see.
Makes me wanna scream from the rooftop to the screen till I know I...
Well, hey there.
How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am dandy, as we on the cusp of Easter glory.
That's true. And by the time this hits, I think we'll be in it.
We'll be in it.
Yes.
We'll be in it. I mean, perhaps some of us never left it.
Are you suggesting that I was not penitential?
No,
Lent?
but I would say that the light of Tabor, as you like to call it,
It is.
shines brightly 365 days.
It does. We
And-
never lose sight of the resurrection. In fact, we can't even consider Good Friday apart from the light of the resurrection.
And I dare say your good friend in Winston-Salem has kept those lights burning brightly all Lent long.
Father Gober lives on Tabor. You know, he does.
It's high-income housing.
Always.
Although he wouldn't have said, let's build 3 tents, one for you, one for Moses, one
said
for
4,
Elisha.
one for him.
and one for me. Actually, I don't want a tent.
No, definitely not a tent. That would have been a euphemism.
So,
Yes.
but yeah, perhaps we should talk a little bit about Holy Week.
Yeah.
And I think we might have done this last year to try to talk about the sort of stretching out of real time. But
Yeah.
it did strike me yesterday something odd about today is Monday of Holy Week, and yesterday was, of course, Palm Sunday, and as of this recording. And one of the things that struck me about Palm Sunday is you have this procession which begins the real time. Right? You're going out in procession. We're actually hitting the streets, so to speak, and stretching out the various events in our Lord's life into real time. And yet we end that particular liturgy with the Passion narrative. So on the one hand, you're in real time, and then all of a sudden you're getting the preview
Right.
of the next, 5 days. And one of the things that I noticed one time, I stumbled into a church years and years ago that did the rite that's known as the sort of the pre-55. So the Roman rite prior to the changes in 62. And what was interesting about that is that I didn't know that it wasn't just a mass going. I thought it was a mass going on. So they have everything as it would normally take place in the mass. So you have a collect, and you have reading and gospel and another various prayers, and then all of a sudden you have a preface and a sanctus, and then you stop and go bless the palms. So this entire pre-mass, like everything except for immolating, as it were, the lamb, you would do, and then you go bless the palms to highlight the fact that we're just taking a little moment for that joyful praise before we plunge into sorrow. Because of course the rest of the mass would be the immolation of the Son unto the resurrection. But I'm not sure if you have any thoughts about that, but it really struck me that contrast between real time and sort of a preface to everything that's going to happen, and then that highlighting of the importance of a little bit of joy in the King coming before we plunge into sorrow.
Those are some good thoughts. I, however, think of silly putty. But do allow me to explain.
Stretching, I guess.
Yes, we're going to get to stretching. So Holy Week celebrates in a beautiful and elongated fashion the Paschal Mystery. And it's this Paschal Mystery that we celebrate at every single Mass. So every single Mass, whether it's a daily Mass throughout the year or it's a Sunday Mass, every single Mass we celebrate is the Paschal Mystery, all just bound up in a tidy liturgical rite, which in the most extraordinary fashion and supernatural fashion makes present to us the entirety of the Paschal mystery. So then I think, okay, well, what then is Holy Week? Well, Holy Week is like taking silly putty. Bear with me. I realize it's a weird analogy, but it takes that silly putty. For those who are younger, they may not know what this is, but silly putty is this kind of rubbery substance. I believe it was Thomas Edison who discovered it when they were playing in the labs with different rubbers for tires. And they noticed that when it touched the paper, it pulled the ink up off the newspaper. In any event, it got marketed out as a toy for kids, so they could play with it, but then they could also smash it just like a pancake on to a black and white
Cartoons we
newspaper.
used to do.
And then you pull it up, and it leaves you with a layer of ink on it, and you're looking at the cartoon or whatever it is, and then you can pull it, stretch it, play with it. And then the ink eventually would just get absorbed into the putty, and then you do it again and again and again. So I think of, okay, well, Holy Week is a bit like taking silly putty and pressing it down on a single Mass, just a single celebration of the Mass, the ritual, liturgical celebration of the Paschal mystery. Then stretching it so that on Palm Sunday, we are elongating the first part of the Mass. We are stretching out and highlighting that procession, which is that entrance into Jerusalem. So that procession happens at every Mass. Whether I'm walking out in the Pastoral Center chapel, walking into the Pastoral Center chapel, and I'm walking from a little side door, it's still a procession to the altar, like our Lord's procession on Palm Sunday to the sanctuary of Jerusalem. Mm-hmm. No matter how small it is throughout the year, on this one day, we're going to tease it out and really reflect upon what every single procession is at the Mass.
Do you typically take a donkey or just
no,
walk?
but I am willing to borrow you and ride on your back on the way in if need be. But yes, but thank you for offering. And then, of course, as the Mass progresses, the liturgy of the Word also becomes elongated. It also too becomes stretched, and that we have this. Two Gospels are read. One is at the beginning of the procession, and the other one is one of the Passion narratives. And so I see that is what's taking place. Then you fast forward to the Chrism Mass, which is traditionally a Holy Thursday Mass, even though we move it to make it more accessible particularly for priests, because they're typically very busy on Holy Thursday. But it is a Holy Thursday Mass where you're now going to reflect upon and sort of stretch out that part of the putty of the priest approaching the altar, that is the consecration. So there's a reflection upon the ministerial priesthood that is instituted at that Last Supper, and it's teased out at that Chrism Mass in a special way, especially blessing and consecrating the oils. They're used for priestly ministry. And then in the evening, you have a stretching out, of course, of the Lord's Supper. And we recognize that Mass of the Lord's Supper is the beginning of the Triduum. So it's the beginning of one liturgical celebration that is over 3 days. So at that Mass, where we're celebrating the institution of the Holy Eucharist, we really elongate what takes place at that altar, because we're reflecting upon what took place at that Last Supper. But we're also then going with our Lord, who has just inserted himself as the new Lamb into that the Paschal celebration of the Passover. And now we follow with him to Gethsemane. We go to places of reservation following the Holy Thursday Mass. And then we pause, and then we return on Good Friday. And now we're still sitting at the consecration in a certain sense, because what I marvel at is that over this 3-day period with one liturgical celebration, we have 2 consecrations. And we are kind of sitting after that first consecration and reflecting upon and teasing out the Passion of our Lord, and venerating the cross of the Passion, and then we return on Easter Vigil, and then we're now reflecting upon the entirety of salvation history, again caught up into the Paschal mystery of our Lord as the Lamb that was offered, but was prefigured in the entirety of the Old Testament to be the one to redeem. And then we get to a moment where now we're going to enter the consecration, the second consecration, this one long liturgical event. And at that point, we are looking toward the heavenly realities that are born and made possible for us by way of the resurrection. And at this point, rightfully then, we bring people into the church. So I just kind of see it in this image of taking what takes place at every single Mass, whether it's a daily Mass or a Sunday Mass throughout the year, and Holy Week stretches it from Palm Sunday to Chrism Mass, Holy Thursday, Good Friday, and the Easter Vigil. And I realize I probably have not done a really fair job or even a decent job at kind of characterizing, but I think I get my point across a little bit.
You've used a lot of words.
I have. Are you awake?
No, and that's kind of what I mean by stretching on into real time.
Yes.
I want to push back a little bit though on.
Oh, of course you do.
On one celebration with two consecrations.
Well, it's one liturgical rite.
It's Holy Thursday, Good Friday, Easter Vigil.
Yes.
And that Triduum, I think we've spoken about it before, almost like a triptych. It is, there is a kind of connectivity, to be sure, to the whole thing. And yet, I don't know enough about the history of the sacred liturgy to speak about this intelligently, but one does wonder why on the very day that our Lord died, why is it that day that we don't offer the sacrifice? And clearly we're not in the same Mass, right? People have gone home. It's over.
Well, I don't think of it as a Mass. So you notice I didn't say it was a Mass with two consecrations. But it is one liturgical event with two consecrations.
Yeah, however we slice that, it still strikes me as interesting. I'd like to know the development of why there was no sacraments offered on Good Friday. To me, it could be totally just my own glossing on this thing, but that the day in which our Lord does this for us, almost as if we can't do anything, that as he was in some ways actively receiving the passion, that's kind of all we can do. I always feel like that on Good Friday, like even though we're priests and so there's a lot for us to do. And we're in the Station of the Cross and confessions oftentimes, and you're doing the Passion service, and there's a lot to prepare and organize, etc. We're doing a lot, but it's interesting that on Good Friday I always feel like there's nothing I can do about it. I'm sort of helpless. I don't want to say completely passive because I'm active in that action, but I think about a line that I read recently that the Lord couldn't even swat away the flies from his face, when he's on the cross, which sounds insignificant, but it's not. I mean, how annoying that is, but it's like that kind of being fettered like that for a time and not being able to have the freedom of mobility. Is it the case, do you think, that Good Friday sits there like that between these two moments of consecration, as it were, and you can't do anything because he did it? Is it just purely sort of receptive adoration that we have in gratitude?
It sounds reasonable to me, but this is me glossing on your gloss. So, I think of it as an extended period of reflection on the sacrifice that takes place at the Mass or at these consecrations. That there is this pausing from Holy Thursday. There is also, of course, this natural sense of walking the Passion with our Lord, walking the whole thing with our Lord. Right. So there is a sense of accompaniment that occurs. We go into the reservation chapels after Holy Thursday, and we're with him in Gethsemane, and then on Friday we're with him through the crucifixion, and then on Saturday we're with him as the entirety of salvation history awaits the Redeemer to rise from the dead, right? So there's that sense of totally accompanying
the
mystery.
and just staying with him. That's my line every year to myself is stay with him.
Exactly. And then that the question about Good Friday, I think it is this lingering, that we are meant to linger there. We're meant to reflect and meditate on what takes place every time the Mass is offered.
I always have a sense, of Good Friday, when the Passion service is over, you kind of feel this weight lifted.
Like work has been done.
The work has been done.
Yeah.
And even though it's still Good Friday, it's still, you're not eating and you're praying, you're not doing something frivolous with your time. Obviously, you're trying to engage the entire day, or should. I just feel so different after than I do before. Like there's this building up, if you will, of kind of emotion around the Triduum. And then after Good Friday Passion service, you feel a kind of, I personally feel a kind of experientially release. Whereas Holy Thursday, as much as you might want to enjoy it, because it's the priesthood, it's the Eucharist, it's for priests, this is kind of like ground zero of our life, right?
Exactly.
Holy Thursday. You don't really get to linger at all there. You're ushered so quickly
the momentum
to the garden.
is picking up. Yeah.
You can't just adore the fact that he's instituted these wonderful sacraments.
You're on a
which
slide.
Is, I guess, part of the reason that Corpus Christi was instantiated anyway, which is to give one more chance for us to focus our entire attentiveness, our attention on to the Eucharist at a time in which we could just celebrate.
Yeah, that's a good way to think of it.
I think I read that somewhere.
Well, you may not be right, but it's a good way to think of it.
And if I read it somewhere, it's true.
It must be true. You probably read it online.
Yeah, probably so. But I
wonder how many people listening to us have given that much thought to Holy Week, other than this is a Lord's Supper, the Mass of Lord's Supper. This is the Passion of our Lord, and here's Easter Sunday or the Vigil.
Well, I
wonder if they've ever really thought about it in its entirety.
I was just preaching had Holy Mass with the Missionaries of Charity, and I was preaching to them thinking, I wonder what their Lent is like. I mean, they live a life of pretty extreme sacrifice. And so I imagine that there's something that they do that they're kind of looking forward to not doing again.
Right.
Whatever those penances are, and having that relieved a bit. But I thought, as I was reflecting on that, I thought, I don't remember anything about Lent growing up. All I remember is a couple days of fish sticks and a rice bowl.
I remember the rice bowl.
Right? You had to fill up your rice bowl with coins and bring it in.
The rice bowl.
To give to people in third world countries, etc.
Yep.
But that's all I knew about Lent. And so I got to Easter without ever going through the 3 days of the Triduum. I knew nothing about them. Period.
It's true. I remember, because of course we have to admit that Holy Thursday, Good Friday, and the Easter Vigil, none of them are days of obligation. Which is fascinating when you consider.
Yeah, the high holy days of the church.
Yeah, but again, in a certain sense, they're saying it's all encapsulated at that Easter Mass, right? That sort of the silly putty idea, which is these days we've teased it out, but it's the same event that you will experience on Easter Sunday, but just in its more encapsulated form.
Yeah, I think that when you introduce people, and I encourage everyone, if you're listening to this and you don't have a habit of making Holy Week, do it. At least just the Triduum, to make the week different than
which is Thursday, Holy Thursday, Good Friday.
Evening of Thursday, Good Friday.
And then the Easter Vigil. And the other thing is there's a difference on Good Friday between the Stations of the Cross and the Veneration of the Cross.
Yeah.
And a lot of folks think, I went to the Good Friday service, and they just went to we went to the Stations of the Cross. The Station of the Cross, it's a devotion, like praying the Rosary. It is not a prescribed liturgy of Good Friday. The prescribed liturgy of Good Friday, that second day of the 3 holy days of the Triduum, is the Veneration of the Cross, which is recommended to begin at 3 p.m., the hour of the Passion and the Crucifixion of our Lord. And it's the service where you actually go up and kiss the cross after the reading of the Passion, after some solemn intercessions, and then after which Holy Communion from the night before is brought out and distributed. But I think that a lot of people get that mixed up, because I've talked to people throughout the years. They say, "Oh yeah, I went to the service, the Good Friday service," and they characterized it. They talked about the Stations of the Cross,
or the Knights of Columbus fish fry.
Oh, the Knights, yeah, exactly.
That the church actually, ironically, on these high holy days, it's really the only time she tells you what you're supposed to preach on.
Yes, true.
Right? Holy Thursday tells you exactly what you're supposed to preach on.
That's true.
And Good Friday you're told to preach very briefly.
Yeah.
And I suppose the briefly, not just because of the length of time that this thing takes, but that our words are, for the most part, just kind of muddle up what are such strong symbols.
Yeah.
That need the kind of quiet visual, sensory reflection upon those sense stimuli. So when the priest first comes in, the ministers, on Good Friday, there's no music, there's nothing on the altar, everything's stripped. And he just goes down on the ground, prostrates. It's one of the most wonderful moments of the Triduum, I think. It's just that utter self-abasement.
And the taking off of your shoes like Moses.
Yeah.
Before
to venerate the cross.
Before the burning
simple
bush.
Little things, taking your shoes off.
Just those beautiful images.
Yeah, so please avail yourself of that. I mean, I know people have to work and things that they can't get around, etc. But to make that, especially the Triduum, Holy Thursday, Good Friday, Good Saturday.
Yeah, the Easter Vigil.
Different.
The Easter Vigil is long.
Yeah, it's not something you want to bring children to necessarily.
It can be hard on them. And
it's about 3 hours.
We don't. I know that you and I both don't say that because we wouldn't want children to be there. It's out of mercy for the child.
Right, it's hard.
Because it's really hard for the children. It is very, very long. I do remember, though, there are some beautiful customs, and one of them is Tenebrae on Good Friday, where a series of lamentations in Old Testament texts are chanted, and the church is dark except for some candelabras and candlelights. And then at the very end, to symbolize the crucifixion and the earthquake that took place at the time of the crucifixion and death of our Lord, everyone is instructed to make noise, kind of stamp their feet and pound the pews in that darkness. And it's really kind of terrifying. I mean,
it is. And children will often cry.
That's what made me think of it. The children will scream, and they have no idea that they're actually adding to the event.
Exactly.
Right?
On cue.
This is like the one time
you're supposed to
screaming children are actually serving the liturgy itself.
I love Tenebrae. Every year I go to that, and I just recall so many times the candle issue getting messed up by one seminarian in particular.
Yes.
And one year, so what happens in Tenebrae is after each of the Psalms and Lamentations, one of 12 candles is put out. And it gets darker and darker and darker. And people have hand candles as well. So at the last one, everyone's instructed to blow their candles out. And the last psalm is sung. And when that psalm is over, the server is supposed to go get that last candle that's in the church and take it away, hide it. And then the chaos, the ruckus, the demonic sounds, the strepitus, these have instruments for these things to make odd noises. That sounds demonic. But then it's quelled by that candle coming back. It was just hidden. It wasn't gone. Like he's hidden in the tomb, right? And he comes back and the silence ensues.
The light of hope is
the light of hope, right? So,
into
but this seminary, of course, just walked up and just blew out the candle. Like, well, there goes hope.
We're done.
We're done. So
it ends there.
Well, a blessed Holy Week and an Easter to you all, and may we all reap the great graces that we have coming to us, please God, in the Easter season.
Likewise. So
before we go,
what do you have to say? You don't have anything to say, do you?
I always have something to say. But since I'm thinking now about things like food, because Not that
Because
we
of
talk
the
about that a lot, but there's
Easter
certain,
Sunday's approaching.
right, and there's certain things that I have abstained from that I'm looking forward to having.
Do you still
again.
do the lamb on?
So this is my
Easter?
thought. I do a lamb, yeah, on Easter Sunday, but I think I might.
To me, that sounds more like a Good Friday meal a little bit, but
Oh, I love lamb.
is that right?
Yeah, I
The
do.
rack of lamb kind of thing.
No, I'll do. I have 3 legs. I'm gonna do. I've let people coming over.
So the legs. Is that what, no? All right. So the leg of lamb. I don't mind the lamb chop.
Lamb chops are great. Yeah,
But
rack of lambs are
but
great.
the fat on lamb chop is disgusting. It's very gamey.
Well, lamb fat is not good in general.
Yeah.
You don't want to eat the lamb fat.
No.
But I'm thinking of making them in the pizza oven.
The legs in a pizza oven.
Yeah, so wood-fired
Yeah, that's intriguing.
wood-fired lamb legs this year.
It also sounds rather ghoulish.
I said to someone who will remain nameless, I said, because I got 3 legs of lamb, and like it's kind of sad. There's a lamb out there with just 1 leg, and she got so sad. Like I'm just joking.
Oh my goodness.
Anyway,
Was that? Well, I don't want to tell you what you had to say for your.
no, that's just what I'm thinking about right now is how to make, because the difficulty with a pizza oven is that you rotate the pizza because it gets too hot, too close to the fire, which is in the back. There's different ways to do it, things in a pizza oven, cook all kinds of different things. But I've never made something that needs time, like a lamb leg needs time. And so I got to figure that one out. So if anyone has done it before and has my contact info, I am willing to take some advice.
Some recommendations.
You don't want to mess up the Easter feast.
No, you don't. One time I had, this would be before we go, I had this, I think it's like a quiche, but it's Italian. And it has these chunks of meat and chunks of cheese and chunks of things that are sort of
Lots of chunks.
suspended in this egg-like custard. And I know it's a traditional Easter thing.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever remember seeing anything or hearing of this in Italy? Is a
It
traditional
sounds like
Easter?
Does that have pasta in it?
No, it did not.
Okay.
It was much more like a quiche, but it was distinct from a quiche in the sense that it's set more like a custard. So it was firmer and had that custardy kind of almost gelatinous, suspensive character. And it had these like chunks of egg and chunks of meat and chunks of cheese.
Oh.
There were certain types of meats that went into it.
I'm not familiar with it.
Okay.
I feel like I see what you're saying, which means I've seen it. I can picture it.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying, though.
I do.
It's one quality, because quiche almost comes off a little bit differently. It's a little less firm custard-like. It's always it's just different.
Yeah.
Whereas this is that firm kind of custard-like, and it's savory. Obviously, it's savory. And it's in a pie. It's in a pie crust, and it's delicious. And I had a woman when I was in Tryon who would make this for me every year, and it was one of those things I looked forward to. And I thought, ooh, because there was some type of meat and some type of maybe cheese that was in it that was so distinctive that I would not have any other time of year. And I don't know what it was.
You never asked.
Like, I do remember, I think I remember something like mortadella or something was in it, or...
Probably mortadella, yeah, which is, in layman's terms, bologna. It's just a lot better than bologna.
Okay.
We call bologna because it's from Bologna, but that's their mortadella.
Okay.
Yeah.
I kind of remember
It's got
something...
some pistachio in a little bit.
It,
the meat
it was flavorful.
Yeah. Okay.
And it was suspended
Now
in
we're
this.
tracking.
Okay.
Now we're checking. So we got an egg custardy-esque an
Pie.
actual pie, and you've got
Mortadella and some other
cheese.
things suspended in there. Oh, well, I wish I could give the people a name. But if they ever do see something like this, as I think we've adequately described, get a bite.
Yeah, and give us some.
Easter joy. Exactly.
God bless you all.
Ciao.
Makes me wanna scream from the rooftop to the screen.
Thanks for listening to this episode of From the Rooftop.
For updates about new episodes, special guests, and exclusive deals for From the Rooftop listeners, Sign up at rooftoppodcast.com.
And remember, for more great ways to deepen your faith, check out all the spiritual resources available at tanbooks.com.
And we'll see you again next time
from the rooftop.